Hey, well, today's is going to be a little bit different, and for an important reason. Pastor Fawn was scheduled to be here and preach, continuing the message of Advent, which we've been walking through, and but we changed some things up for this weekend. And as many of you know, Pastor Steve Purdue went to be with the Lord on Thursday of this last week, and we wanted to take some time today in our service to walk through some of the reality of what that means. And here's why. One, it's really personal to me. Pastor Steve was a really close friend and mentor for the last 4.5 years of my life. We were on the same staff as Living Water pastors together, and he poured into my life a lot spiritually, but beyond that, I was a part of his life group. When we arrived here, my wife and I, in September 2017, there was a group that had started, kind of just starting, of some incredible people and some incredible couples, and Pastor Steve and Joan were a part of that group and leading that group. And when we first got here, they knew we didn't really know anybody, so they were like, hey, you guys need some relationship. You invited us to be a part of the life group that they had. And so we were a little reluctant because we were like, I don't know if I could be in a life group with another pastor who's on the same staff as me. And I don't know, we felt a little bit weird, but we were like, we need relationship. So we dove in, and it's been some of the best parts of the last 4.5 years of our lives. But so we grew in deep relationship through that life group as well with the rest of our life group over the last 4.5 years. Additionally to my personal relationship with him, I know a lot of you have had a relationship or a connection that have been impacted by Pastor Steve's life. He was the interim pastor here at Restoration Church while the search to find the next pastor was in place. So he was here for 4 or 5 months, consistently preaching, leading, loving people through a very difficult time. And if you are here a part of formerly the part of the Restoration family, you know and got to experience how a very difficult season of transition, the Lord sent Pastor Steve and Joan to just be here and just to love on people and just to be available and walk people through a very difficult thing. And what a gift that they were. So several of you know them from that. And then a lot of you will know them from the Living Water Olympia campus and the ministry that he's had and they have had there for the last several years. So there's a lot of you in our church family, and our church family has been deeply connected to Pastor Steve and Joan. And so that's another reason why I wanted to walk our church through this today, given the reality of what took place this last week. And if you're here and you don't know who Pastor Steve is, you didn't really know him or you didn't get a chance to meet him, I really believe that God's going to speak to you today as we walk through some of these things. I'm going to share from my heart some of the things that God's been walking me through over the last few days. And so regardless of really your relationship or connection, I know God's going to speak to you. And I felt very compelled by the Spirit to lead our church in this way today. So I'm going to do my best to lead us in this next few moments together. And then we're going to spend some time at the end of our service worshiping and praying together and just being in God's presence, because I can say a lot of things and it pales in comparison to just being in the presence of God together and focusing on His Spirit and praying with each other. And so we're going to do that at the end of our service time. We left some space for that, to have that moment. So Pastor Steve this whole process of him passing away, for me, it's a new thing for me, this grieving thing. I've lost a few family members in my life, and I want to acknowledge that there's a lot of grief that has been walked through or is currently still being walked through in this room represented. And so even if you, again, didn't know Pastor Steve, today might even bring to the surface some things that you have experienced in your own life with grief. And I want to acknowledge that because it's something that can be emotional for a lot of people. I know it has been for me over the last couple days, this last week. But I realized I've never walked through this level of grief. I've lost some family members, like I mentioned, but no one as close to me in relationship as Pastor Steve was. And so I'm new to this. This is all really brand new for me as I'm walking through it. And I'm sad, like on a deep level. I'm hurting. Like I'm even a little bit angry, for being honest. And I'm heartbroken. And I'm also full of gratitude, and I'm also full of a weird kind of joy. It's like not the normal joy that maybe it's actually what joy is, and maybe I just haven't really known it. But it's like up and down. Like there's these moments where I'm like, how did this happen so quickly? How did it happen? As like the reality that he's really not here anymore. It keeps setting in different levels. And then the reality of where he is fills me, and there's just an up and down roller coaster. And if you've walked through grief, I'm sure you've experienced these things and know a little bit about what I'm talking about. But this is new for me. And so what I wanted to do today is give you I wanted to let you in on three specific things that I'm learning as I'm walking through this new journey of grief. And then I wanted to share with you 3 things from Pastor Steve's life and who he is that has impacted me, and I think challenges you and I to audit and assess our own lives in light of the way that he lived and be challenged by it, because I think that would really honor him today. I will also say this isn't a memorial service. This isn't a celebration of life. There is going to be a celebration of life for Pastor Steve tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at the Olympia campus, Living Water Olympia campus in Olympia. And I'd invite you to come be a part of that celebration tomorrow night at 6 p.m. But here's 3 things that I'm learning as I'm walking through this brand new journey of grief. First thing, I'm learning that it's okay really to not be okay. It's okay to really feel the emotions of what I just described. It's okay to not know what to do. It's okay to not know where to go. It's okay to not know what to say. And it's okay to not run from those feelings or to try to push it all down or pretend like you're better or I'm better than I actually am. I'm learning that it's okay to be heartbroken. And I am heartbroken today. But I'm reminded that that depth of grief that I'm experiencing in that heartbreak is due to the depth of love and connection that came from Pastor Steve. And even for you, as you think about your relationship to him or people in your life that you lost, when you feel this level of this sense of grief, it's most oftentimes in correlation to how much he loved or connected or how important he was. And ultimately, I'm clinging to the reality of Psalm 34:18, which is so explicitly clear that the psalmist writes that the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Man, God is so close right now. And he's close to you when you're in broken, hurting situations. It doesn't always feel like that, but we know it to be true. God is close. He's near. He comes close. And our grief and our pain and our brokenness really draw him close. And I'm thankful for a God who comes close even when I'm a mess. I'm so glad that God doesn't just stand off on the sidelines because he doesn't know how to cope with what I'm going through, or he thinks I just need to get over it, or he thinks that I just need to push through. But he doesn't delay. He comes close. He pursues me even before I have it all figured out, even before I've gotten healthier, even before I've overcome. He comes close. And he's committed to me in that brokenness. And he's committed to you in your brokenness. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted. He's near to us today. 2 Corinthians 1, verse 3-4 says, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort, who comforts us in all of our affliction, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God." I know that this whole process of being brokenhearted is also so that the Lord will use the comfort that I'm experiencing from him in moments to be a conduit of that comfort to the other people in my life that are feeling a similar degree of pain and grief. He's close. And it's okay to not be okay. Second thing I'm learning right now is that I'm learning that it's okay to need people and accept their help. I've always struggled with this. When someone reaches out and is trying to help me or encourage me, I've always struggled with that sense of, I help people. I do that. I take care of the problems. I try to solve the things. And so it's been hard for me periodically, especially in seasons where I'm trying to figure out how I feel and think and all of that stuff for me to receive. And man, what I'm learning more than ever in the last 3 or 4 days is that when it comes to walking through grief especially, you need people. Man, you need people. And it's okay to accept their help or their effort. And it's okay to receive their desire to help. And sometimes what I need, it's just a hug. Sometimes I've had a few hugs over the last 48 hours, 72 hours or so that have been more impactful than any words anybody's ever said to me. Sometimes it is a conversation. Sometimes it's an encouraging text or a phone call, or sometimes it's literally just a listening ear. But I'm learning that it's okay to need people. And when you're walking through grief, it's important that you acknowledge and realize you need people. You can't isolate. You can't do it on your own. Now, there are moments where you don't want to talk about whatever it is that you're grieving. You don't want people to shut up. Don't talk to me. I need to just... But if you stay there, it can be unhealthy. And if you stay there, it can be dangerous. You need people. Romans 12:15, Paul says to rejoice with those who rejoice and then weep with those who weep. There's a call to embrace that for people in your life that are weeping and to help be there to rejoice with them and weep with them. But I also believe it's the reminder to let other people come into your life, in your space, to rejoice when you're rejoicing and weep when you're weeping. 1 Corinthians 12:26 says, if one member suffers, all suffer together. Paul's talking about the body. If one suffers, we all suffer together. If one member is honored, we all rejoice together. And so even today, we are mourning and grieving as a body, and some are more than others, but we are all in this together in that way. Finally, from the things that I'm learning right now in this moment, it's that it's a powerful highlight and example of the reality that eternity is real. This is not our home. This earthly tent is not going to last forever. And Pastor Steve right now is home. And I will see him again. And so will you. He crossed that finish line. He finished his race and is welcomed into the arms of the Father. And 2 Corinthians chapter 5, Paul talks about being absent from the body. And when you're absent from the body, you're present with the Lord, home with the Lord. I believe that's where Pastor Steve is at right now. And I believe when he crossed that finish line into eternity, there was a crowd of former saints that went on before him. I imagine there was people that he led to the Lord, that he knew he maybe led to the Lord, people that he didn't even know that he led to the Lord, or impacted their part of their journey with the Lord, that were there as a welcoming party as he crossed that line. And he got to experience the fullness of the presence of God coming into that moment, seeing the Father face to face and being welcomed in and seeing the impact of his life. Reuniting with family, children that he lost. And just this beautiful moment of the reality of eternity, an eternity that he lived for and towards almost his whole life, preached about and taught about, he experienced in that moment. There was I don't have my phone up here, but there was a verse in the Bible app today, which I thought was funny because of the way that there's this thing with Pastor Steve. There's this thing with Pastor Steve where if you've ever been in a setting with him where he's in the front row, he's usually in the front row, right, in a worship setting or a worship service. And I got to know this part about him. So consistent. And by the way, he was a very consistent guy. But he had this clap. And some of you may have experienced this before. But when this man clapped, everybody within a 30-foot radius felt it through the atmosphere. Like, and it felt like every time he was clapping, he was like trying to crush Satan's head. It was like that kind of force. And there were moments where we'd be literally singing the worship song, and he would be on beat. But I have an example in my mind. It was like the bridge of a song called Holy Ground, and it was like the song goes like chains, fall, fear, bow, and he would just be like, I mean, every beat he'd be just because it was like you could tell the passion of like he believed what he was singing and he was declaring it, and man, the enemy was gonna be defeated. So it always would catch me a little bit by surprise, because I would feel it from the next style over, just like he doesn't even know how loud and forceful that clap is. The worship leaders feel it off the platform. They're gonna get off beat. But he had this clap, and man, the verse of the day in the Bible app, just that verse is always a verse of the day. It popped up, and it was this. It was Psalm 47, verse 1, and it says this: clap your hands, all peoples. Shout to God with loud songs of joy. And as I was preparing this morning and just being with the Lord, and I read that, I was just like, man, he's doing it right now. I'm sure the angels are like, whoa, chill, dude. Like, you don't need to clap that hard up here. Eternity's real. And as I'm walking through this new journey of grief, I'm holding on, I'm clinging to that reality of 1 Thessalonians 4:13, which just speaks to that. We don't grieve like the world grieves. We really grieve as those that have hope. We don't grieve as those who have no hope. We grieve as those who have hope. Why? Because we know where he is and we know where we're going. We know what is coming on the other side of this temporary experience of life. We grieve as those who have hope. And so do you today. You grieve as someone who has hope. Even if the hope is hard to experience and hard to understand, we have hope. So that's just, listen, I'm committed on this journey of leading this church to lead it as authentically and vulnerably as I possibly could and can. And so part of what today is just, I want to walk you through a little bit of where I am as I lead us, and then prayerfully that the Spirit would take what he's doing, and whether you already know it and you've got it down, or it's something that you would begin to process for the first time, that he would take it and help you with wherever you are in this season today. I want to invite Mike back up to the platform, and I'm going to just share with you three other things, but this is more specifically about Pastor Steve and his life, the man that he was, the husband and the father, pastor, mentor, leader, friend. That when I look at his life and I go, man, I want to be like that. These are three of the things of many. We can go, I could spend a long sermon series walking through the way this guy lived and how it challenges me to be a better husband, father, friend, pastor, preacher, all those things. But here's three for us today just to take and go. Be challenged by. And then honestly, again, to go, man, if we had any relationship with him, to how can I honor his life? Well, look at these three things and go, God, help me take those seeds of what we saw in his life and grow them in me in a fresh way. The first thing is that Pastor Steve, he made people feel seen and loved. And I'll tell you what, after 50 plus years of being in ministry, meeting a lot of people, having a lot of opportunities to be hurt, let down, backstabbed, all these different things, and all the other positive things, to be known as somebody after 50 years of being in church and ministry, whatever, to be known as somebody, because he is, whether it's somebody, I've heard this from multiple people in the last few days since stories have been coming out, people have been posting and people have been sharing, that like people that didn't even know Pastor Steve, but there was this one guy that shared with us, I didn't know him personally, but I remember the moment that I met him, And when I met him, I felt seen and loved. And that impacted him. And whether it was a stranger that he met as he was walking in the sanctuary on a Sunday, or somebody in his life group, or a family member, or whatever, anywhere else in between, like you felt seen, like he saw you, and he looked at you with eyes that were curious eyes. They weren't preconceived judgment eyes, like he knew what you were going to say, or he knew what you were. He looked at you with these curiosity eyes, these eyes of curiosity, in a way that's like, yeah, keep telling me more. I'm not too busy for this moment with you, because I'm thinking about where I need to go and what I need to do and who else. It was just present in that moment, and you felt so seen and so loved. Man, it was something about, like, you knew you could bring any of your stink to Pastor Steve, and it wasn't too stinky for him. Any of it. You could bring any of it, any deep, dark cavern of a secret or a problem or a wrestling. You knew the safe place that you could come to with that man and know that you are still going to be loved with the Father's love. Man, he made people feel seen and loved. Bare your soul in counseling sessions, man, he'd still love you. There were moments in our life group, man, like that invitation for us in the very beginning to just be a part of that. He never stopped that kind of invite. It wasn't just a one-time thing because he felt bad for this new couple that was moving and didn't have any friends. That kind of spirit of invitation continued throughout the 4.5 years that we were in relationship. He just always was inviting into that space of relationship. We were able to really be ourselves in that space. He still felt us. We still felt seen and loved. Man, he made Holly and I feel so seen and loved in the way that he believed in us. He believed in who we were. When we got up here and we said yes to being youth pastors in September 2017 for the Olympia campus, and then just walked that journey out to then processing, are we ready to go be lead pastors, to be campus pastors? He was the first one in my corner that was like, heck yeah. What are you talking about? Of course you are. God's called you. You got this. You're the man. You're the man for the job. And it was coming from not somebody who saw me all my stuff on the outside. It was coming from somebody who really knew me on the inside. So when he said that, I knew he meant it. He championed us all the way through the transition of restoration and Lacey campus. I mean, just by my side. What do you need? You're doing a great job. I know this is hard. I know you're a lot younger than me. I know they think that. I know that you got this. God's got you. And the way he loved his family. I was there the night in the hospital room with Pastor Steve before he went nonverbal and non-responsive, and I was there. I got to see him, spend some time with him. Just the way his family was there in that moment. Joan, oh my God, Joan with such a radiation of peace like I'd never tasted before. I never experienced it. I couldn't understand it. It was unfathomable, the peace that this woman had in the midst of insane circumstances of what could be. She stood there, and it wasn't lofty. It wasn't overly spiritual. It wasn't not embracing the reality. It was just peace. It was a peace that surpassed any bit of human understanding that I had. And it was because God was in that space, and he was in that room, and he was in her heart, and it had been produced in her. Man, he still loving his family as they were coming around him. He made people feel seen and loved. How do you make people feel in your life right now when you think about if you didn't have any more time to make people feel a certain way, how would they audit that in your life? I'm telling you what, it's important that the people in your life know how much you love them, know how much you care about them, know how much they mean to you. Even if today's a moment that you are just reminded of that, a close group, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, whatever, friends, family, that you could go home today and just text, I love you so much. Here's what you mean to me. Here's how you've impacted my life. To then realizing the stranger that you can meet, man, you can make an impact on them by making them feel seen and loved. Pastor Steve did that. Secondly, he loved and was full of the Word of God. I mean, like, uncanny. Like nobody else I've ever met. It was annoying sometimes. It's like, how do you have that much scripture memorized? How is it? But it just came out of him. It wasn't like he even had to go look. It was just like, it's because he had it in him. He was full of the Word and he loved it. He had a relationship with his Bible that was so real and so connected, and it wasn't just a byproduct of years of preaching. Can I have so many things, man? Thank you so much. It wasn't just a byproduct of years of preaching the message. No, he was in love with the Bible. And he did preach and teach it for over 50 years, but it wasn't just the messages from the platform that proved his passion for the Word. It was the way he lived his life. It was what came out of him in moments of conversations with people. Man, the Word of God was the most valuable thing in the world to him, and it just flowed out of him. I remember this time we were in life group, and he was walking through the book of Revelation. He was teaching us Revelation, which I count that one of the greatest gifts, this gold mine of Pastor Steve Purdue, just Bible study through Revelation. But there were some sessions he would get there and we would do a chapter a week. There were some times he'd get there and like we'd all have our Bibles, because Revelation, by the way, is nuts. It's crazy. It's a crazy book. It's really confusing in a lot of places. He'd get it, but he had spent so much time in Revelation and in his Bible in general. He would have his Bible, but it would like be closed, and he would walk us through verse by verse. And I'm like, how do you know that's what that verse, you don't have your Bible open? It was because it was in him. He'd be like, this is what it is, this is what, and it was like, this man loved the Word. The Word was life for him. And honestly, I think that's part of why his life made the biggest impact that it did. And I'm so challenged by that. How's my relationship with the Word? Are you reading it to get it in you? Or are you reading it just to check off a box? And read the Word to be full of it, not to just scratch the itch or the surface of your Christian obligations. It's not an obligation. It's a get to that a lot of us don't take advantage of. But no, it's life, man. And he loved the Word. I want to love the Word like Pastor Steve loved the Word. I want the Word to flow, because you follow Jesus for 40 or 50 years, it doesn't guarantee that the Word's going to come out of you like it did with Pastor Steve. Finally, Pastor Steve lived his life in light of eternity. I mean, you just knew. He didn't just preach the kingdom of God. He didn't just preach the gospel with 40 or 50 years of his life. He lived his life really believing, I'm going to eternity one day because this isn't my home. It was all about the kingdom of God for him. It was all about the kingdom. Another annoying thing that he did. We would say, what's up, Pastor Steve? And he'd say, Jesus, every time. Like cliche, cheesy Christian thing. And I thought he did it like once or twice with me when I first moved here in a couple years. And I was like, okay, he won't do that anymore. He's already done it. No, every time for 4.5 years. What's up, Pastor Steve? Jesus. Just confident, definitive, because it was that was it, man. It was just, all of who he was pointing somewhere, pointing to someone. And it was Jesus. I mean, just lived his life with eternity in mind. Every single day was going towards that direction, pointing people to the kingdom. And he cared about kingdom things that matter, people and moments. He poured his life into people and into things that actually mattered. And that moment when I saw him in the hospital 2 days before he passed, I realized how much he poured into the things that mattered because of the people that were surrounding him, his family. And as he was sitting there, I was thinking about just all the things that we care about, all the things that we spend so much of our time in this life on, get so caught up in, stressed out by, frustrated by. We just waste mindlessly time of our days too. I'll tell you what, he was sitting on the hospital bed. I'll tell you what he did not care about. I'll tell you what he wasn't doing. He wasn't scrolling through Facebook. He wasn't mindlessly refreshing Instagram. He wasn't longing for a binge on a Netflix series. He wasn't arguing about politics. He wasn't worried about the next mask mandate or not. He wasn't angry at Nancy Pelosi or whoever else. He wasn't talking about who he was bitter against or unforgiving towards, the grudges that he was holding. He wasn't worried about money. God, he was just present and talking and engaged and loving on his kids and his wife, knowing where he was going. And I was standing back and just watching and observing and just going like, this is what matters. This is what actually matters. What's in this room right now. Nothing else matters. But how much of our lives go towards the things that don't matter? And it's not a shame or condemnation, but it's like a wake up. Wake up. Wake up. We don't know what's on the other side of tomorrow. He lived his life in light of eternity. Those people in the room were what actually really mattered in that moment more than anything else. And he helped me see in a fresh way the beautiful call to live in light of eternity. I'm going to miss him a lot, so it was such a safe place and a rock for me. I didn't have to be Pastor Chase for Pastor Steve. I could just be young whippersnapper Chase. God, he would see me and love me and encourage me and challenge me. I'm going to miss having that safe place, that refuge and that rock to turn to in those moments that he's so embodied of the Father's heart for me. And I know for a lot of you, you'll miss that. You'll miss him as well. I was so thankful 4 weeks ago when he realized something was wrong again, and his body started fighting something again in a new way, and he was going to the doctors to figure out what was going on. We had scheduled him to preach here at Lacey campus because I hadn't had a Sunday off in a while from preaching, and I was feeling the weight of it. And he had been telling me the whole time, I'd love to preach for you, give you a breather. And then he got sick again, was getting weak. And so we were like, no, you're physically probably not able to. And we were talking to him and Joan because he didn't always give me the accurate answer. I know I could go to Joan and get the accurate. But man, he was so determined to preach, to share a message, the sacrifice of thanksgiving. And he got up here and he preached for 18 and a half minutes and preached his final message. I'm so thankful for that. So today, as a church family, I want to point you to Jesus. I want to point you to the author and the perfecter of our faith. I want to point you to the reality that his life embodied, that this isn't our home, and Pastor Steve is home right now in the presence of the fullness of the presence of God. And that's where all of us have the opportunity to go one day. And while we're on this side of eternity, we have the opportunity to live our life in light of that reality. And so whether today is just time for you to process more and just think about his life, think about God's faithfulness through his life, and grieve a little bit and just press into some of those things with the Lord. I just wanted to take some time as a family to just get in God's presence and be with each other and pray and to worship. And so I want to pray for you. And I do want to give an opportunity for somebody in here that just, I want to pray for you. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to worship. And I want to have the altar open, and maybe you just just need to get into God's presence up here. We're going to have some of our prayer team on the sides and in the back for you just to go, whatever. It could be something connected to what we're talking about today. It could be something else going on in your life. We just want to pray with each other and be there for each other as a family today, because when one part of the body suffers, we all suffer. We lean in and we rejoice with those who rejoice, and we weep with those who weep. But we hold on to a hope as we mourn. that we will get to see and be with Pastor Steve again one day in eternity, ultimately with the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, God Almighty. So would you stand up to your feet for me, and I'm gonna pray for you, and then Mike's gonna lead us in a time of worship. And if you want to pray with somebody, we'll have our prayer team ready to go. If you want to come up to the altar and just get before the Lord. If you want to find somebody close in this room that you just feel like, you know what, like I want to go tell them how valuable they are to me, how much I love them, I care about them, and just pray over each other. Do it. Aisles are open. You're not locked in until I say goodbye. You can move around. Be empowered to be led by the Spirit. God put somebody on your heart in this room to go pray for. Go pray for them. Or I want to go get prayed by that person. Go ask them to go pray for you, man. Just be led by the Spirit and empowered to do that as we sing and as we come into God's presence together. God, thank you for Pastor Steve Purdue and the impact of his life, personally, corporately, the way that he always was the peace in the middle of the storm. He always was the guy that was in the middle of crisis for other people and yet remained steadfast. God, what a perfect example of the way that you are for us. What a pointing picture of you for us. God, I just pray as people walk through grief, would you lead us? God, would you help us as we process? Would you, like your word is clear to say, you are close to the brokenhearted. God, would you be close to us? Would you help us not just suppress and push down or run from or deny, but God, embrace the reality of what we're feeling and then walk with you and other people through it. Help me do that. Help us do that as a church family. And for everybody today that's just bringing back feelings from grief that they've walked through or loss that they've experienced, God, I pray that today is a fresh and powerful moment for them to just be reminded of who you are and how you come close to us as we walk through this stuff today. I celebrate, I honor, I glorify you, and I thank you for the life and impact of Pastor Steve Purdue.